But welcome to our first 30-minute Leadership for Digital Learning webinar focused on authentic problem solving as our theme for today. As a 30-minute webinar, we want to kind of go through a sequence of information we've put together for folks, but I couldn't begin without highlighting, and as a reminder to always remember that the it.lyric.org website is kind of your central source for keeping up to date with all of the programs and services happening this year from the Lyric Instructional Technology team. This year we've had our largest catalog of offerings ever produced, and that's easily accessible from the website. And again, my name is Randy Hall, and it's a pleasure to welcome everybody this morning. My email address is there in the lower left-hand corner if you want to make a note of it. You should have the ability to take notes in the WebEx session for yourself, and then you can download those to take them with you afterward as well. But today we've kind of put together a three-part process for sharing information and bringing some questions to you about authentic learning, and from a leadership perspective, we've got an example from a story, a teacher in our region. And then the intent of these webinars is just to offer some quick, simple, yet meaningful and powerful rapid strategies for school and district leaders for analyzing where are we in a particular theme or aspect in instructional technology, and how can we gain some insight from the data available to us. And then we also put together a takeaway packet of some rapid leadership actions, very simple activities and things that we can do as school and district leaders that can be acted upon and get us some important and meaningful impact in our progress to move the needle to greater effect for instructional technology in our classrooms. So that's kind of our three-part journey together this morning. But to begin with, I'm kind of curious about everyone's current perspectives on your school's progress or activities around authentic learning. So I'm going to open up a poll, which you should see in the right-hand panel of your meeting session. And there are a couple of questions, or three questions. And if everyone could just take a moment or two to go through and respond. How often in your school or district are students engaged in authentic problem-solving projects or activities in their classes? It's kind of one perspective. And then a second perspective question of how often do you feel your teachers are incorporating authentic problem-solving projects or activities as part of their instruction? So again, the meeting poll should be on the right panel of your WebEx session, or if you have hidden it by accident, you can access it from the window menu. And I see we've got three folks joining in. And then there's an open-ended question. I'm kind of curious about how you would describe authentic learning in your own words. Any suggestions or ideas of how you communicate and talk about authentic learning in your district? So we still have a couple of people mulling over the choices and answers in the poll, which is just fine. Really kind of curious for everyone's perspective. So there are kind of two multiple choice questions and then a third open response. And after you type in your answer to the third one, in the lower right, there's a submit button. Thank you to a couple of the folks. We still have one or two other individuals who are working to share with us their answers. Terrific. Thank you, everyone. So here's just a quick scan. Let's see what we all have to share. So kind of a perspective a couple of people just maybe weren't certain or sure of how often your students might be engaged in authentic learning activities, or your teachers are incorporating authentic learning. And then we have a couple of common with this instructional strategy or approach that we all talk about for authentic learning. And so thank you all, and you should be able to see your answer for the open-ended questions, and I'll be curious to take a look at those. Let's see. Has real-world problems that students work collaboratively to solve, a genuine process for tackling meaningful and realistic problems, students solving problems. Those are all of the very common perspectives on kind of description from Education Reform website gives us some of those key aspects to think about. Connecting to real-world issues, problems, or applications, that the project or activity is contextual for students in what is happening in the outside world, outside of school, where there are practical and very useful skills, and where there's a connection to the deep knowledge or understandings that work professionals have for a particular field of study. So that's kind of the umbrella description we're using for our conversation today. Now, to begin with, a quick story from a teacher in our region. Heidi Bernasconi is a science teacher from Clarkstown High School North. And she has embarked on incorporating authentic problem solving in her classroom by using a framework she calls 20% time. And let me see. Let me get back up there. And 20% time for Heidi is a project process that she began last year, and it was inspired for her based upon the model she had learned from Google about how they encourage innovation and creativity with their staff by allocating 20% of their work time to be used for their own personal projects. So she adapted that to have 20% of her classroom time focused on projects that students design and implement throughout the year. She does this by allocating every Wednesday in her class is set aside as a 20% time day. Students are identifying the projects that they're going to be working on, and they're also creating their own individual goals and assessments for these projects. When I was speaking with Heidi a week or so ago, a couple of things she highlighted for me were this is important for her because it's giving more freedom to her students over their own learning. And she recognized that this kind of authentic learning approach can give students kind of more flexibility over the pace and pathway of their exploration of learning. She was very curious herself about new ways to spark curiosity in and among her students. And she also felt that she could achieve some of the same innovative and motivational aspects by using 20% time in her classroom that Google had experienced in their corporate environment. And then lastly, a big takeaway for Heidi is that she's laying the groundwork for her students to develop their own ownership of responsibility and accountability to their own learning. Heidi's done a lot of work over the last year with 20% time. She has a complete outline of how she plans her Wednesdays from the beginning of the year to the end of the year. She's even done a session or two with some of the local BOCES for teachers. And she's also going to be our featured +1 event for our leadership webinar series. And December 2nd, Heidi is going to be hosting a site visit opportunity for anyone interested to come and find out how does 20% time work with her students in her classroom. So at the end of today's session, I'll be sharing with information and an update about how, if you would be interested for yourself or maybe with a team or a group of faculty from your school, visiting Heidi at Clarkstein High School to see and learn how she structures 20% time. That's kind of our companion +1 event for today's webinar theme. It was a real pleasure to speak with Heidi. She's an energetic, no holds barred teacher. She's diving in and really strengthening the impact in her classroom with authentic learning approaches. Now, when we think about authentic problem solving and all of the previous descriptions you had shared, I'm kind of interested in hearing from the group about what do you feel are those important foundational skills or building block activities that students would need to master or have success with in order to achieve their project or activity around authentic problem solving. So I've set up a collaborative open Google document, and I invite everybody to take a moment. I'm going to also post this link in the chat so that you'll be able to click on it easily. So give me just a moment, and I'll copy and paste that over for everyone. So in your chat window in just a moment will come the shortcut link, and in your chat window you can just click directly on that, and it'll open up and take you to this shared Google document. And go ahead and pick a cell and share with us and everybody here today, how do you identify what some important foundational skills or building blocks are important for students to master so that they can be successful with any authentic problem-solving activity or project? And as you can all see, I set this up as just a public no sign-in required Google document, so you all get to be little animals anonymously. And so feel free to share any perspective or suggestion. And again, if you'd like to share your ideas about what are those key foundational skills to be successful with authentic problem solving, in the chat window of our session is a link that you can just click on right from the chat window, and that will open up your browser and take you immediately here. So some of the common themes: communication. Whether I'm working independently or maybe as part of a group, communication is always an important strategy to feel comfortable and confident with. We all have some interesting perspectives on different audiences of communication when we look at some of the analysis and insight themes in just a few moments. Being able to ponder and reflect upon multiple points of view, willing to fail, taking risks, absolutely. Because if I'm embracing a real world situation or scenario, then failure is actually a valued part of the process for many. These are really great. Curiosity, thinking, risk-taking. because one of the aspects we can think about as leadership for authentic problem-solving efforts is really pausing to step back and understand what are those building block skills that would be important also to focus on, because sometimes we can get great impact out of focusing on the foundational skills so that the authentic problem-solving approaches or ideas that teachers bring to their classroom can live and breathe very organically because students have had the opportunity to master these important foundational skills or building blocks. Thank you all. That's a great kind of tapestry. I hope you can see some of the other ideas and suggestions, and this will be a good takeaway also for everybody after today's session. So collecting and analyzing data, being able to research a topic using online resources, and I tie this research is not solely just about informational research, but research via interviews and communication with other practitioners or professionals in the field. And social networks today are such a rich environment and access point for students as well as teachers to do research on a topic. Don't always have to just read the article or the text on the screen. Engaging in communication by capitalizing on social networks for learning. And then also strong digital citizenship skills, are also kind of perceived as important foundational skills related to authentic problem solving. So I hope that might help us all kind of gather around this campfire of authentic problem solving. We do have not only Heidi, but many other teachers, and probably likely in your school, working in this area. And then being able to pause for a moment and think about, well, what are some of those foundational skills? So this year's theme for our leadership seminars, Analysis into Action and Insight into Impact, is really an attempt to help us as school and district leaders save time and be able to get in and get out and know where are we in our progress toward instructional technology use in the classroom. And so as a Model Schools member, your district has access to the Clarity platform. And if you're unfamiliar with Clarity, it kind of focuses in 4 domain areas of classroom access, skills, and environment. And what I wanted to do is just go through a quick highlight and demonstration of some quick tips and strategies for you in your Clarity data to gain some insight, and how can you quickly go in and analyze and gain some insight from your collected Clarity data. So you should be seeing on your screen my Clarity dashboard, and one quick tip is to focus on 2 domains, classroom and skills. There are a couple of specific areas and indicators within classroom and skills that I'm going to highlight and just demonstrate how you can get in and you can do a quick analysis, ask yourself some important questions, and then get out. So under the classroom area, when we're wanting to gain insight into authentic problem solving, it's all focused around the use of the 4 C's by teachers and students. So when I go into the teacher use of the 4 C's, under the critical thinking indicator, here we will find some really helpful information about the profile of our district and school. And there's actually a specific element related to how often are teachers asking students to identify and solve authentic problems. So under the use of the 4 C's, under critical thinking is where you can find this data point strand specifically around authentic problem solving. Now, some quick tips here when I'm using the Clarity platform. If I go back to the 4 C's and I go into teacher critical thinking, or I might also want to have some other area open to look at and compare. Now, the way I do this is I use a little mouse shortcut. So I'm going to go use the right mouse button. So here I am in that original classroom listing. If I want to kind of peek into teacher critical thinking and student critical thinking, if I open both of those and use my right mouse button, I can use my little shortcut menus, open that link in a new tab. So I'm going to open the teacher critical thinking page and then also the student critical thinking page. Because this will then allow me to quickly scan and compare and ask some really interesting questions for myself. So this is students' perspective of how often they're asked to collect and analyze data. When I compare that to a perspective of teachers, I can see already an interesting ponder point. Well, teachers are reporting that they're not really ever asking students to collect and analyze data. And here we see students reporting that they are being asked by someone, somewhere, could be a teacher. Students could interpret this as another external point of inquiry. And so those can be kind of interesting questions when you start comparing teacher perspectives and data points with students. Now, if I go down to that authentic problem solving, here we're seeing that kind of as a region as a whole. This is my Clarity platform point of view. Asking students to identify and solve authentic problems is not something that a great majority of teachers are currently doing in our region. And if I'm kind of curious, does that match? Is it different from a student's perspective? And I can actually begin to see some differences. It's not as great of a correlation among students. So that could give me something to follow up in my school or district, talk to some students, ask them about this, talk to teachers, share with them. I noticed that we have a large percent of faculty who are reporting not pursuing authentic problem solving, but students have some experiences. So what are those experiences they're referring to? And could it just be things teachers are overlooking? They're not acknowledging for themselves the great work they might be doing in deeper and meaningful authentic problem solving types of activities. Here under this strand of Clarity data, if we go back up, conducting research, conducting experiments or performing measurements, and collecting and analyzing data. One of the subtle aspects in the Clarity data and response points is for most of them, they're already sequenced. Collecting and analyzing data, performing experiments, and conducting research can be viewed as building blocks or foundational skills to authentic problem solving. And so the arrangement of the data and the research in that sequence, as you look at different domains, that can give you some insight into, if you go all the way to the bottom, the things that are prior to it could be important foundational skills or building blocks to start with. So in the use of the 4 C's, critical thinking has that authentic problem solving strand. And a quick tip I always use is to right click to open the different tabs and windows. Now another built-in element that's handy, I'm looking at the perspective of students collecting and analyzing data, and there are these comparison tools. Always take an opportunity, whether you're in the teachers or the students, to have it show you that comparison side by side. So again, this can present to me another area for further probing in my school. How is it and why is it that students have kind of an even reporting of being asked to collect and analyze data, but teachers maybe are not recognizing that they might be doing that in the classroom? And so I can probe to learn more. This comparison option, quick options, compare to students and other teachers, and in your district's data, you'll have an ESA option to compare kind of regionally as well. So you can get your district or school profile comparatively with the rest of the region. Under the classroom domain, teacher use and student use of the 4 C's are a couple of key areas to probe important and helpful aspects to gain some insight into comfort and knowledgeability about the legal use of web content, how to assure and ensure against cyberbullying and practices, and online safety knowledge and practices. And there's also some very interesting correlations between your parent community's perspectives and comfort level with some of these aspects. Now, for authentic problem solving, the skills domain also has a couple of other key indicators to find some interesting details. Under foundational skills, the frequency of learning use will give us some insight into, again, some of those building blocks. Because if I'm engaged in authentic problem-solving project in classroom, how comfortable am I in researching a topic? And have I done that in online networks? Do I do that just by searching? Do I utilize books? And do I ask a friend or a teacher? So all of these methods of communication, as you all shared earlier, communication is an important element to master for success in authentic learning. And these are different points of view on researching a topic that you can take a look at in your school or district. In addition to foundational skills, online skills will give us some insight, again, into frequency of use and confidence. Collaborating and using online documents. So a perspective of how easy or difficult that might be for students and teachers. Using web tools to receive information, not necessarily just to go get, but to have it delivered to me. That taps into a lot of social networking access. And then if we think about speaking or communicating with other professionals in a field of study, either chatting or social network posting perspectives as well. So under the skills domain, a couple of quick areas related to authentic problem solving can be those foundational skills and online skills. So some quick analysis and insight takeaways. Related to authentic problem solving, two domains, get in, get out, the classroom domain and the skills domain. The key indicators that can give you some meaningful insight in your school or district are those use of the 4 C's for critical thinking and digital citizenship. Those are under the classroom domain. And then the foundational skills and online skills in the skills domain. A couple of Randy recipes that I like to use for efficiency. Use that right-click and view multiple windows at the same time. Use that comparison side-by-side of teacher and student. Remember that the sequencing of the data points in a particular indicator, for the most of the domains and indicators, are already sequenced so that they're giving you that insight into foundational or building block focus points. And then use that compare every now and then with either past gathered data collection activities, or if you're curious about a regional perspective, with the ESA option. And again, all of these tips and materials will be made available to everybody after today's session. So my hope is that these might give us a couple of quick ways to get in and get out with analysis and insight. Now, if we've gathered that perspective and begun questioning in our school or district, what are some very quick and simple on-the-ground activities as school leaders and district leaders that we might consider incorporating into our practice? We want to light that fire of imagination and innovation in our teachers. We want to aim for a target to increase our progress toward authentic problem solving. And some of these, you want to work a little magic. You want to kind of create some enthusiasm, give people something simple. So some recommendations. We would recommend that district and school leaders model. take a moment to extract something from your clarity data. Using data, collecting and analyzing data is an important foundational skill for authentic problem solving. Model that with your faculty. Lead your own quick online polls and surveys. Remember, some of the key foundational skills is to collect and analyze data. Use those Google Forms or Office 365 surveys or Kahoot or TriCiter or a variety of any tool to model for your faculty member. If there's an important issue or initiative, collect and analyze responses. Another maybe less often aware option, being able to leverage social networks. Go out and get voices from other practitioners. Using social networks as administrators to bring back information and insight into work we're doing in our school, along with the cited source and modeling that I'm going to provide the cited source with my faculty, can help remind them of why it's important in our work with students to have them cite sources for all of their research. Encourage your teachers or faculty members design and implement their own simple 1 week, 1 month collect and analyze data project. Encourage teachers to not only just live within the building or the county or the region, but branch out, seek other voices and ideas, gain support, sometimes commiseration with other educators by leveraging those popular online educator networks, Edutopia, Discovery Education, Smart Notebook. A lot of online educator networks can give teachers new and innovative and fresh voices to support their thoughts and progress, but also to bring new inspiring and ideas and encouragement. And then lastly, as a district or school leader, it's always important to acknowledge out loud, in your face, over the top, be explicit. For authentic problem solving, if we understand and agree that one of the foundational skills is to analyze and collect data, acknowledge teachers who will do that and share that during a faculty meeting. Leveraging social networks, encouraging teachers to go out to Edutopia, find some other educators, what are they struggling with? And if they bring those insights back to a shared conversation, acknowledge and reward their efforts. "20% time is just one of many possibilities for authentic problem solving by teachers in a classroom. We're so pleased and thrilled that Heidi Bernascoti agreed to let us share her story today and is agreeing to our December 2nd site visit. Some quick and simple analysis and insight techniques and action and impact strategies. Those have been our kind of three-part journey for our first webinar today. I want to thank you for taking the time and during the busy morning to join us for our first webinar event. Be on the lookout for a thank you email, and we'll have registration information for yourself, but it's also possible if you wanted to, if you maybe in your district have some teachers who might be curious about 20% time. There'll be a registration form. We'll also have a link to the recorded video and then a separate downloadable document and material with the information from the presentation today. So that's a wrap for our 30-minute webinar today. Thank you all again for joining us, and I hope you might have already registered, or if not, go to My Learning Plan and register for our next Tuesday webinar next week, which is on collaboration. Thank you again, and this is Randy Hall from the Lyric and Sectional Technology Group. Have a great Tuesday afternoon, everyone.